So 2024 is here, and ta-da! The end of Casco Law. Dun, dun. So what does that mean? First of all, let's go back to what was Casco Law. And in fact, what it still is. Casco Viejo Law had a lot of elements, not only the tax benefits that I think it's what most people were focused on, but those elements in the law have now expired. So what does that mean? Well, what were they? They were three specific ones. The first one was applicable to the property itself. Any property that would have its occupation permit within the law could benefit from 30 years of no property taxes, whether it was commercial or residential. So that's number one. Number two, you had access to a special mortgage rate with the banks that gave you 3 points below whatever the normal rate was, and they would keep it for the duration of the mortgage. So that was number two. And number three, you had 10 years of no income tax in that unit from the rentals that you would be doing. So those were the three main tax advantages that this law would give you. So what does that mean now? What that means is, for example, number two specifically has expired. Banks now do not offer a special rate for buyers. So you are just at the same level as the rest of the city, just a normal commercial rate. So do ask banks where you're working with which specific rate they are offering. I have seen in the market anywhere from 750 plus a 1% that is called FESI, so that would be a total of 850, to 850 plus FESI, which would make it 950. Depending on the bank, you will find a little bit of both for investment properties. Now, if you are already in Panama, you have a residency visa, you have a cédula, Panamanian cédula, this calculation might change for you. So you have to ask specifically, what does that mean for your specific case? So that's the first impact of this law going away. The second impact is, if you see properties under construction delivering this year, you need to ask whether they fell under the Casco Viejo Law, meaning did they get their occupation permit on time? Some properties did, some properties did not. So for example, in the case of Santa Familia, we have it. In the case of La Quince in Santa Ana, again, we did. Other properties, we need to confirm, we need to ask. But now you have to be careful in that sense. For those who had the occupation permit in time, those properties are eligible for 30 years of no property taxes. For the rest, they'll have to be paying just normal property taxes. And if you want to know how property taxes are in Panama, go click on that video where I talk about property taxes in Panama. Or ask your accountant and your lawyer. Now, this is where things get complicated. Let's say you're coming to Casco and you fall in love with any building, any property here that's already restored. There were three different laws in Casco Viejo from the very beginning of the restoration era until now. Each law had different calculations for the property tax exemption. They all said the same thing though. It's as per occupation permit. So let's say you like an apartment that was built 10 years ago. Then the question is, how much is left? Because the occupation permit was 10 years ago. Now, out of the three laws, one said 30 years, the other one said 20, and the third one that just expired said 30. So it's gonna get a little tricky, property by property, almost cherry picking, just to understand how much of this tax incentive is left for each property. So it's just a little bit more of due diligence at this point, but it's important that you know that that's the universe that we're going to be living in. We'll be happy to help you sort it through. So again, the three main things that you have to keep in mind. Number one is the mortgage, if you're going to get financing, what it is and how it applies to you is going to depend on different banks, their policies, and your status in Panama. Number two, whether the property that you're buying, even if it looks like it's new, okay, when was the occupation permit issued? And number three, depending on when that was, that property might have different numbers in terms of how much time is left in their property taxes. And what happens at the end? Well, you pay normal property taxes, and the calculation is in that other video. So go ahead and take a look and leave me a comment with your questions.